Euromaxx highlights. And here's your host, Karin Helmstedt.
Hello there, and a warm welcome to our highlights edition once again. And as is the custom, here's a look at what's coming up on today's program. Motorized fun, the latest in electrically powered recreational wheels. Daring stunts, a European pilot and his passion for aerobatic flying. And generous dish restaurants worldwide are cooking up pasta for a good cause. When it comes to recreational sports, the marketers never seem to tire of reinventing the wheel. For example, with things like smart electric features, like these roller skates turned rocket skates. Well, the name alone conjures up visions of Jetson-like travel. My colleague Maike Krüger tested these and a few other newfangled gadgets, and happily, she lived to tell the tale.
Time-honored skateboards and roller skates are getting a motorized boost. But are electric wheels easier to ride than their traditional counterparts, or harder? I want to know how difficult it is to ride with electronic power, and I'm going to test 3 gadgets and Danilo too. And we want to find out what they really can do. I borrowed a Pro together with my electric vehicles. Danilo Behrendt has a shop in Berlin called Scooterhelden with a good selection. I chose the Air Wheel, the One Wheel and a pair of rocket skates. Before heading out, we have to fill up at an outlet. It takes 20 minutes to charge the One Wheel, but the batteries only have a reach of 7 kilometers. The Air Wheel has the longest reach. It can go 30 kilometers on a charge. The plug on the rocket skates isn't easy to find. Their batteries last 16 kilometers.
Okay, you have to know that.
Then we head out to the runway of Berlin's decommissioned Tempelhof Airport. Today the airfield is a public park. Just the right place for us. None of these vehicles are street legal. Pets aren't required, but they're a good idea, as we later find out. The Pro shows me how to ride the Air Wheel. It can reach a top speed of 30 kilometers an hour. These electric unicycles are produced by several brands with prices ranging from 300 to 2,000 euros. The rider steers and stops by shifting his body weight. The hard part is getting on. Even after half an hour practice, I still need help. And I'm scared to let go. Beginners will have to take a few hours to get the hang of it. After they shell out 1,850 euros for it. The next device is for the Pro. The One Wheel runs on one thick tire. Rocks, sticks and bumps in the road are no problem. The top speed here is 25 kilometers an hour. The motor is inside the tire and the sensors that activate it under the boards. If you ever stood up on a seesaw as a child, you'll know how to get on a one wheel. You steer this one too by shifting your weight. Leaning forward speeds it up. I can go it alone, but I'm still afraid to go fast. This one is my favorite. The big minus is the price, 1,400 euros. And if it ever needs repair, it has to be sent back to the manufacturer in the United States. The rocket skates look like something out of the 1980s science fiction film. We expect to launch like a rocket, but even the Pro is having trouble. These skates will only do 16 kilometers an hour, theoretically. In practice, it's not easy. First you have to push off and then press down with your heels to activate the electric motor. And try not to fall. The skates slip over your own shoes. I'm not even going to try to launch like a rocket. I'm happy just to follow along. But even with help, I'm a failure. Or the skates are. Please let me stop. Just as we are about to give up, help arrives. The highly skilled inline skater has been watching us and wants to try out the rocket skates. Even he has trouble at first before he gets the hang of it. The skates are way too dangerous, at least for me. I wouldn't take them as a gift, let alone pay 700 euros. They definitely not for beginners. I would advise not to try this alone. And even there is a little electronic motor, it's still exhausting, maybe dangerous and rather expensive, but it is lots of fun, especially with this one. My conclusion, you can break a bone just walking, but I think there's no use tempting fate.
We were lucky to get her back in one piece. Well, the Rhine is the second longest river in Central Europe and Western Europe. It begins in the southeastern Swiss Alps and flows through 5 more countries: Liechtenstein, Austria, Germany, France and the Netherlands, where it reaches the North Sea. Now, historically here in Germany, the Rhine is not only a commercial lifeline, but also deeply ensconced in the nation's romantic imagination. 2 exhibitions in the city of Bonn are showcasing the Rhine in representative art. And so we went to see why it's such a compelling motif.
The waters of the Rhine have traveled 745 kilometers by the time they reach Düsseldorf. Photographer Bernd Hof has lived by the river for 40 years. More than just a subject for his photos, the Rhine is a part of his life. For Bernd Hof, the Rhine also means motion, and he captures it on his mobile phone.
I even wrote an app especially for my photography on the Rhine. It has this line in the middle, and everything that flows through this line is preserved.
All of the motion is captured in a kind of long exposure. The flow of the current is what creates the photos. It's provided Bernd Hof with a new perspective of the river. His images are part of the exhibition The Flow of Pictures, on show at the LVR Landesmuseum in Bonn. It presents the works of 62 European photographers who take very different approaches to depicting the Rhine.
For the last 150 years and even beyond that, the Rhine has inspired artists to create pictures. First painters, then photographers. This relationship has changed greatly over the last 150 years.
The oldest object on display is a Talbot type from 1853. It shows a castle in the Middle Rhine Valley in the old Romantic tradition. In the 20th century, the rise of tourism became a major focus. But the Rhine has also been subject to abstraction and reference. Andreas Gursky's Rhine 2 was taken in 1999 and fetched a record-setting 3.1 million euros at auction in 2011.
That's because at the end of the 90s, photography made its way into the art market. The other aspect is that with this image, Andreas Gursky entered the realm of painting to the point of abstraction. And the Rhine was a suitable subject.
Like no other river, the Rhine stands for the European idea. Between its source in the Swiss Alps to its mouth on the Dutch North Sea coast, it flows past or through 6 countries. The longest stretch lies in Germany. In 2002, the Upper Middle Rhine Valley was named a UNESCO World Heritage Site as a tribute to the entire river's unique cultural history. Lined with dozens of cities, monasteries, and castles, including the world-famous Cologne Cathedral, the Rhine has borne witness to thousands of years of human history.
We can be certain that the Rhine was actually the axis connecting the Mediterranean Sea with London.
Without the Rhine, there would never have been a Europe. Never could have been.
Marie-Louise von Plassen is curating the exhibition The Rhine, the Biography of a European River at the Art and Exhibition Hall in Bonn. It brings together 320 quality exhibitions from around Europe covering the Rhine's entire cultural history. That's a first. The exhibition starts with the Romans, who called the Rhine Rhenus and worshipped its river god. In the 18th century, English writers and artists discovered the river and its castles as subjects for their novels and paintings. Among them was William Turner.
That touched off a kind of rediscovery of the treasure trove of myths and legends connected to the Rhine. The Romantics then took it to the next level.
Well known is the saga of the Lorelei, a beautiful virgin sitting on a rock who lures Rhine boatmen to their deaths. Heinrich Heine's poem Die Lorelei catapulted her rock to fame. The work has been set to music 300 times. Romanticism paved the way for mass tourism along the Rhine and at the Drachenfels ruin close to Bonn. For some, it's a pleasure cruise. For others, it's hard work. The Art and Exhibition Hall's show includes the photographs of Paul Martens taken at the mouth of the Rhine in Rotterdam. Europe's biggest harbor stretches more than 40 kilometers along the river to the North Sea. The Rotterdam native grew up by the port.
My parents, my grandparents, and the next generation they were all busy working in and around the Rhine. The Rhine gives Rotterdam an existence. The Rhine for us means everything.
His time-lapse images lend Rotterdam and the Rhine a kind of romanticism of their own. And that's the photographer's intention, to reveal the legendary in his subject, the legend of the Rhine.
Well, now to aerobatic flying, which is a thrilling yet dangerous sport with more than its share of fatal accidents. Loops, rolls, spins and tail slides are just some of their stomach-jarring maneuvers. And Nicolas Ivanov of France is one of Europe's elite pilots. Here's more.
Aerobatic pilot Nicolas Ivanov zooms through the air at speeds of up to 425 kilometers per hour, constantly pushing himself to the limit. He's considered one of the world's best aerobatic pilots. Born to Russian and Greek parents, Ivanov grew up on Corsica, which is why he's nicknamed the Quick Corsican. He's always been fascinated with flying.
As a student, I wanted to be, I decided to be an airline pilot. And then when I started to learn to be a pilot, I discovered the aerobatics. So I did that just for fun. And then I find a job as an aerobatic instructor, teacher. So and then I did a contest. And step by step, I didn't want to do that, but the life showed me that.
He's been competing in the Red Bull Air Race, the world's fastest aerobatics competition, since its beginnings in 2003. It's an aerial parkour. The sixth of the total of 8 stages has just been held in eastern Germany. The pilots collect points during each stage. The one with the most becomes the world champion. The physical strain of these flights on the pilots is extremely high. Even so, there's no age limit.
2 years ago, Nigel Lamb won the championship, and Nigel is 10 years older than me. It's not the age, it's the, as soon as you have pleasure to do that.
Nicolas Ivanov checks over his single-seat Edge 540, a propeller plane with plenty of horsepower. It can reach speeds of up to 426 kilometers per hour. Aerobatic pilots need nerves of steel. Nicolas Ivanov risks his life on an almost daily basis. That's his job. He lives from sponsorship and advertising revenues. The amount of advertising revenues depends to a large extent on how well he does in the World Aerobatics Championship. Sharp turns close to the ground and free falls keep up the adrenaline.
I try to be funny. I'm calm outside a lot of time, but inside sometimes I'm really nervous.
Fear is always on board an aerobatics flight. Nikolai Ivanov has to learn to control it and live with the risk. It's a rush, but with a spectacular view.
Traditionally, admiring art in the form of paintings was something of an elite pastime. You had to go to a museum or a private gallery. But in the digital age, many artists have appropriated the internet as an endless virtual exhibition space. Dutch painter Tijmen Termaat is one such artist. His short time-lapse film called I Paint immediately went viral online and continues to fascinate millions of viewers all over the world.
Around 1,000 photos compressed into just 3 minutes. Dutch artist Tijmen Termaat spent close to 3 years working on his short film, I Paint.
A lot of people were asking me, what is it, what you do, what's your profession? And I try to explain that I paint. And well, that brought me to the idea of making a video that explains in visuals what I do instead of just words. And well, that's how it all unfolded.
He posted I Paint on YouTube back in 2012. It went viral and garnered millions of views. The time-lapse video is comprised of individual photos that Tijmen took of himself by remote control. He made them into a film without using any digital effects, producing optical illusions through the use of perspective alone. At times, it took several days to compose a single frame. Now, I Paint has been viewed close to 100 million times. In spite of its success, the artist isn't planning a follow-up anytime soon. Tijmen came to painting almost by chance.
I always been drawing as a little boy, and when I was on the design academy, a classmate invited me to paint something. She said, well, you can draw better, I can paint better. So I took the challenge, and well, that was for me the first time I really made a painting, and I immediately fell in love with the process. And the day after I made another painting, and the week after I quit school and moved back to my parents to start painting and start my business as a painter.
Tijmen's paintings are rich in detail, and many exude an almost surrealist quality. Some of his works are months in the making, while others are finished in a matter of hours. But they all have a story to tell, even if that's not always evident at first glance. His studio in France is located in the ruins of an old factory in the countryside. The artist finds creative inspiration by going for walks. Tijmen has always felt close to nature.
I grew up in the countryside in Holland, in the polder side with the windmills and stuff, so I always been close to nature, and well, me and my family have moved here to France, where we're still in the middle of nature, and well, it's a big part of me, and it inspires me to do my paintings, and yeah, it made me who I am.
Tijmen paints with acrylics and usually starts with a rough idea in mind. The work only really takes shape once he picks up his brush. Sometimes he captures this creative process on film.
Every now and then it's nice to capture a process, because, well, when you look back at it, it's part of the magic just to see it all unfold. When I'm painting, I'm very much into the painting itself, but with the video I can viewed it from a distance. So.
The artist hasn't ruled out making a sequel to I Paint. But even if he doesn't, his magical works are sure to feature on the internet for years to come, because Tamer Termaat knows he will never stop pursuing his passion for painting.
Every year in the Italian town of Amatrice, there's a festival devoted to its well-known pasta dish, spaghetti alla matriciana. You've probably eaten it before and had no idea that it came from there, but don't be surprised if you now find it on menus wherever you go. As one of the towns devastated in the recent earthquake in central Italy, Amatrice is now a heap of stones and rubble, and chefs all over the world are rushing to adopt the now homeless dish. And they're also donating a percentage of proceedings of the sale of each portion to help the quake-struck town. So here's to simple food with the power to unite the world.
Berlin's Kreuzberg district is well known for its many cafes, restaurants and bars. It's also one of the German capital's most ethnically mixed areas. Once a counterculture hotbed, it's now a magnet for hipsters from all over the world. Kreuzberg is also home to the restaurant Jollesch, which specializes in Austrian cuisine. The head chef is Tobias Janssen. Now the Italian classic spaghetti alla matriciana has been added to the menu. Jollesch is taking part in a campaign started by Italian blogger Paolo Campana. On a Facebook post on August 25th, he asked restaurants to serve the dish in a show of solidarity with earthquake victims in Amatrice, Italy. Star chefs like Jamie Oliver and over 700 restaurants around the world have answered the call. €2 are donated for every portion sold.
The campaign has met with a very good response. People like to eat spaghetti, and if they can do something good, it tastes all the better.
In the nearby Market Hall 9, Tobias Janssen collects the ingredients for the recipe. The most essential one is the pasta, from noodle makers Mani in Pasta. They make their organic spaghetti fresh every day. Pasta alla matriciana uses just a few ingredients, so it's important that they be the very best. The pasta comes from a special €50,000 machine and goes to restaurants and hotels throughout Berlin and the region.
Okay. Ciao. Dankeschön.
Next on the list, from a vegetable stand close by, are the onions, garlic and tomatoes. It's important to Tobias Janssen that they be very aromatic and ripened on the vine.
The tomatoes are the basis for the sauce and, in fact, the entire dish. If the tomatoes don't taste good, the whole dish won't taste good. You have to make sure they're not green, that they're juicy and they smell good like ripe tomatoes.
Back at Jollesch, Tobias Janssen first slices the bacon. The original Italian recipe calls for guanciale, but pancetta or another streaky bacon can be substituted for it. The bacon, garlic, onion and tomatoes have to be finely diced. The tomato skins can be left on or removed according to taste.
If you cook the tomatoes whole, it takes too long, and you get a lot more taste with a larger surface area.
Pour olive oil in a pan and sauté the bacon, onions and garlic until they're transparent. Then add the tomatoes. Then briefly turn up the heat, stirring the whole time until you get a creamy, somewhat thicker consistency. Season with salt and pepper to taste. Then place the fresh spaghetti noodles in boiling water for 3 or 4 minutes until they're al dente. Dry noodles take a few minutes longer. Finally, dress the plate. Sprinkle the dish with freshly grated pecorino cheese. And it's ready to serve.
I like this dish very much because it's easy and still delicious. It doesn't always have to be high-end cuisine. That's not what cooking's about. The emphasis should be on the natural simplicity of the ingredients.
For 1 year, patrons of Jolesch and other participating restaurants can order spaghetti alla matriciana for a good cause. So far, the restaurant Jolesch has raised about €200 to be sent to the Italian Red Cross and hopes there will be much more to come.
Well, that's all for this time for our highlights. So until we meet again, thanks for watching. Alles Gute aus Berlin und tschüss.